Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss Pre-Market Report for Monday, February 8th, 2016. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss, with analysis for the upcoming session and week of trading. Here we have the daily time frame of the ES. We've seen overnight selling pressure. What we talked about late last week was, first of all, how price failed to hold above this HPN here of 1921. When price went offered through that level and bounced into this zone, as soon as prices began to be defended at 1921s again, that was our indication there that value was being offered and we were likely going to see a push downward. I mentioned at the time that if value in the HVN is going to be offered at 1921, the suggestion is a retest of the 1811 HVN, and right now we're on our way that way. It's been a significant rejection at that level from below, and now we've seen a solid less than 2 day approach toward our target. So it's been not even two full sessions here, and we've seen a complete push into the 1846 LVN. Now, this is the first time we've seen a push into the CLVN here since the initial tail event here, where we had the tail event, then a retest and rally into our 1939s. This is the first time we're seeing that move. Now, 1846 has been my key level to defend here time and time again, but I mentioned on this session here that once this went offered, it likely means a breach of 46s and a push into 1811s. So right now we're right at it. We've seen an overnight battle at that zone. It could still potentially hold and lead to a return to 1921s, but failure to hold above 46s opens up that 1811 later on in the week. Now, if you take a look a little bit longer time frame here, you can see we've seen this rodeo before. Just last August, we saw an impulse swing move downward, very similar to what we saw here, downward. And then we saw a bounce, and then we got a pullback just above the highs before this thing rallied. And we're seeing the same thing. We've seen a bounce. We're seeing a big, deep pullback here. And this could be the pullback that leads to, potential rally back towards 2070. So, we've seen this play out before. But again, if this 46 can't hold, then, in all likelihood, we go down, retest those lows with a shot to see new lows. So this is going to be important how it plays out this week. Again, I'm going to be using 1846 as the key pivot early in the session. Now, looking at the intraday time frame briefly here, you can see 1846s and how prices have played around that level. In overnight trading, we saw a significant sell-off here, a drop in the 46s. It held initially and bounced. And then we came down, saw a lower low, and now we're back above the level. So this is a battle indeed happening at this zone. You have overnight VPOC here at 1847.5. You see a major LVN here in the overnight profile, 1856s. I would say 56.5 continues to be a key level there short term, where price bounces into that area. You're going to see bears look to defend for a shot lower. Above 56.5 squeezes back to 65.5 with a shot at seeing 1875. Okay, let's take a look at crude oil. Here's crude oil in the daily time frame. At the same time that the ES was being offered at 1921, the HVN, the same thing was happening here in crude oil. Price was not able to hold above the midpoint of the range at 33.43. That's here. And then we saw a sell-off. The subsequent bounce saw a retest back at 33.43, which was easily defended and rejected price. So when this occurred right here, and price pushed into that zone but got defended, I mentioned that could be the signal here that we're headed for new lows, especially if 29.25 gives way. You can see the LVN here on the profile. Bullish responsive buying has been seen here, but there's a ledge right here. So that should be support. It should continue to be support between 29.25 and 29.50 for a rotation up to 33.43, but failure to hold above those 29.25s likely opens up a major push back into 27.56 and likely much lower. We have extension targets down below at 24.63 and 21.69 on a first basis. If this thing breaches 27.56, look for a push into these two targets in the weeks ahead. Okay, now let's take a look at the intraday. On an intraday basis, you see how this thing has sold off significantly in overnight trading. Well, this all came as a result of the rejection from the key range from Friday's market. So that's the Friday overnight key range right here with the high at 31, or rather a low at 31.38 and a high at 32.37. Price rallied into the bottom of the key range perfectly, getting a high exactly at 31.38, which was the pre-market low that session of the key range. And once that was sealed, it's been steady selling pressure the entire time. We've already seen a move into the 100% expansion target. We could even bring up more expansion targets as well, but we also have our ADRs to play to. So we can just bring these up on this basis here just to see how far this thing can take us. If we're looking at a 200% move here, then that would take us right into 29.40 with a shot to see 28.90, which is inside the 100% ADR target. So all of these targets are very much in play here, especially if bears continue to hold price below 39 here. All right, let's take a look at gold just briefly here. Gold continues its parabolic move. We've been on top of this thing the entire time in terms of the rally that was forthcoming. This has been the biggest move we've seen in some time. I thought after this session here that we could see a bit of a pullback, but I mentioned before, even if we do see a pullback, it's likely still a buying opportunity for continuation into 1169s, and we've seen price push into 1169s and beyond now. So this has been quite bullish the way it's played out. I would say the previous week's key levels are going to be very important. So basically, any pullback into 1158 offers an opportunity to defend for a continuation. Below that level opens up a return to 1126.10. Okay, let's take a look at the NQ. Lastly here, the NQ has seen some significant selling pressure here. We've already seen 110% of ADR on the session, and we're not even into RTH yet, so we could see further expansion throughout the day. Right here, basically, this was the one that was the weakest, that never saw price come into its target, which was 43.40. Came just shy of that target and never printed this impulse key range for us, which told us that there could be more weakness ahead. When price failed to hold above 42.26 here on this session and went offered, that was the early indication here that 42.26 was still the pivot. Remember, 42.26 is the midpoint of the August key range. And since failing to hold above that level, we've seen nothing but downside rejection into the downside levels here. So taking this HVN offered at 40.25 suggests more weakness to the downside. We have primary bear targets at 38.80 and 38.25, which are the primary and secondary targets for the week. Any returns to 4,000 from below, likely, at least short term, will be seen as selling opportunities for a continuation downward. Above 40.25 would likely squeeze back into the range here, above into 4,200. Looking at the intraday time frame for the NQ, you can see this thing has been steady selling pressure throughout the morning and for the last couple of sessions. Right here, 5-day VPOC at 41.51 went offered, and we haven't seen it since. So right now, it's in a downward price discovery phase. I would say pullbacks to 4,001.5 offer opportunities for bears to defend. So if this thing bounces into this zone on a higher time frame basis here, 4,000 could offer an opportunity for more weakness below. Above 4,000 opens up a return to 4,100. All right, that's it for now. Let's see how this thing plays out the rest of the week. Good luck, trade well, and happy Monday.